and welcome to Congress for Global Communications. I'm Dr. Sonia Robinson, President and founder of CGC, as well as Special Advisor to the Gender Equality Team, which represents Sustainable Goal number 5. In our mission, we have many pillars. In today's episode, we will be focusing on women in leadership. Still, women today face numerous problems in the workplace. But these inspirational women here today will share experiences and tips to help you become fearless in stepping outside of your comfort zone. They will be answering questions, starting with their journey, their challenges, struggles, successes, and providing you with their own personal expertise. We look forward to you placing your comments and questions in the feed throughout the show. And please share the video, please. Thank you for taking the time to meet with us today or to meet us today. And again, welcome. Now, let me start out by introducing you to the Gender Equality Team. And today we have Dr. Soyam Shah. Dr. Soyam Shah is the team leader. She will be my co-host for today, and she's out of Nairobi. So I'm going to ask each one of the team members, just as I introduce them, to say a couple things about themselves, but not to give you a bio, but to share with what's on their heart. So Dr. Soyam.
Well, thank you, Dr. Sonia Robinson, and a good morning, a good afternoon, a good evening to all of you here today. Thank you for joining us. This is a topic so dear to my heart. As Dr. Sonia said, we're not sharing bios, but one thing that I want to share in my journey as a woman leader is a specific quote that always is dear to my heart. Hard roads require a wheel of steel. It's not just about the destination, but it's about the journey. And it's your journey. You can create it. Thank you, and I look forward to having a fantastic session today with everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Soyam. Next, we have Dr. Denise Purnell Cuff. She's from Esmer, Delaware.
Hey, good day, everyone. It is wonderful to see you all. Happy Saturday. It's a pleasure to be here and be able to have a conversation and a very thoughtful discussion with this group on a very valuable topic. As we progress in this conversation, you'll get to learn a little bit more about me and my area of expertise and get some words of hopefully some words of wisdom that I can share with you all. Just in my experience in educational leadership and behavior leadership and being a woman leader, I think my best advice and most direct advice I could give is around the best yes. Like just being conscious about like your capabilities and contributions without fully depleting yourself so you can still be able to give and reach the outcomes you want and have produced good outcomes for the folks that you really care about. So I look forward to this conversation.
Thank you. Thank you. And our last member of the team is Melissa Frazier. She's from New Amsterdam, Guyana. She's having problems joining us today because of some bad weather, which is creating internet issues. So her specialty is education, and she also works in empowering women leaders. So that's the team, and I want to say thank you for that. And then I'm going to turn it over to Soyam to share with us the mission, the vision, and the purpose.
Thank you. At CGC, our vision, the Congress for Global Communication, CGC, exists to promote diverse and inclusive dialogue, resulting in civility for all. Our mission, the mission of Congress for Global Communication, is to build global connections and communications for the advancement of sustainable development goals by providing training, policy recommendations, and empowerment forums with an overall scope of transforming the world. And our purpose is to encourage dialogue. to impact humanity through collaborative global communications, to be a resource for sustainable development goals. And we welcome all of you to join our CGC network.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And before we get started, I'm going to now bring out our special guests, and I'm going to ask them to do the same thing. Or I'm sorry, I'm going to bring out the special guests, and Dr. Soyam and Dr. Denise will be doing the introduction. So tell me what order you want them in.
We can start with Mary.
Awesome. So it's my pleasure to introduce Miss Mary E. May, who I've known for so many years, both in the field of behavioral health and education. Has been a very powerful and valuable contributor to our young people and our women in leadership. She's doing amazing things out in the community. And so I can't wait for you guys to hear and learn about what she's doing and how she's making her impact around the world.
Great, great.
And so thank you for that wonderful, warm welcome. And following the lead of a previous speaker, I'm going to start with a quote. My favorite quote that kind of governs everything in which I do, both youth to adult women in leadership, is freedom lies in being bold. My heart statement, my thing that I enjoy the most is helping you become visible from an invisible workspace, leadership space, and understanding if you stand in your authority, you stand in your assigned greatness.
Oh, love it, love it, love it. I'm going to guess on the next one.
Yes, our next speaker is Arif Kalsi, and she's one woman that since I've got to know her for the past 6 years, I've always been inspired by her. From her journey as a woman leader, struggling in such a dynamic, dominant world in her industry, traveling the world, facing so many obstacles, both in her business, at her workspace, and as a wife and a mother, and most importantly, as a friend. This woman has conquered so many obstacles that even I cannot wait for her to share her story with the rest of us. And over to you, Arv. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you very much to the Gender Equality team for this opportunity to have this space with all these wonderful women in their leadership roles and making an impact around the world globally. So again, following on from Soyam, who I've known for the last 6 years, my favorite quote is by an inspirational woman that I've looked up to, and that is none other than Mother Teresa. And I feel that alone, we cannot change the world. But at least if we cast a stone across the water, it creates many ripples. I always believe, like as women and women empowerment, we actually help each other carry on forward and encourage and celebrate each other's achievements. And that is what it's all about.
Thank you, Arif.
And something close to my heart.
Go ahead,
Something
go ahead.
close to my heart. Women's health. Very, very important. We always tend to put ourselves last. So very important to look after ourselves as well.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And last but not least, and you've seen her before, and she's back with us again today, Dr. Denise.
We're going to introduce Dr. Justine is going to introduce herself and help us learn more about like what she's doing around the world and what impact she's having and who she finds inspirational.
Hi, yeah. Hello. Thank you very much, Dr. Sonia, Dr. Sayam, and Dr. Denise. And of course, I'm glad to be in the same space as Aviv and Mary. And the issue of gender equality, that is something that very close to me. I've worked in this space for over 30 years now on a global platform, starting with working in the Commonwealth Secretariat, which is like it's almost like a mini United Nations, but it's composed of countries that mainly used to be colonies of the British Empire, except, of course, the United States, but it comprises of over 55 countries. And of course, After that, I started my own organization, and the Justina Mutale Foundation focuses on equipping young women and girls with leadership skills so we can help the United Nations achieve what is called a 50-50 planet. And we are also, we work with the United Nations. We are always part of the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women that takes place every year. This next year will be the 68th session, and we talk about where women have come from, what we are doing now, and how do we get to where we want to be as regards our fight for gender equality. And when you talk about codes, oh God, I'm trying to find my code here. Of course, my role model is my mother. I come from a background of very powerful, assertive, strong women who've always defied the gender dynamics. So that is why I'm interested in gender equality, because it shocked me to come out into the world and find that women were fighting for gender equality. Because where I come from, women have always been ruling. A woman up to today, from time immemorial, on my mother's side, rules the kingdom. So it shocked me to come out to the world and find that there's this fight for gender equality. And my favorite quote, as everybody's been saying, I've got a number of quotes because I have done a book on women's leadership powers. But what I can quote now, I suppose, regarding the fight for gender equality since the women's suffrage movement over 200 years ago, and we are still fighting for this. So my favorite quote is actually by Winnie Mandela. And she said, "Our struggle was not a flash in the pan. I had kept it alive with every means at my disposal." And I think this is what we all need to do as women. It's not our struggle for gender equality is not something that we can achieve overnight, but we've got to keep it alive with every means that we have at our disposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So we're going to jump right into the program, but I want everyone to understand the next question that I'm going to ask. So as I'm asking the questions, I want you to think about it. I want the audience to think about it as well. So that question is the importance of women in leadership. And I'm going to start out by asking or giving my opinion. So I'm just giving a short, brief answer, and then I'm going to ask the panel to just jump on board with their thoughts on it. So why women in leadership matters. Women around the world are capable of anything. Women bring different perspectives, approaches. They increase productivity, they enhance collaboration, and improve fairness, just to name a few. But I don't want to be outdone with a quote, so I saved my quote for last. As former Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, an Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States, once said, "Women belong in all places where decisions are being made. It shouldn't be that women are the exception." So again, we're here to talk about women in leadership, and I'm going to ask Soyam to share with us the flow of the program. And then once we get through that, we'll go to Denise and start the question and answer session and allow the women just to start sharing what's on their heart. So Soyam.
Thank you, Dr. Sonia. And just before I get to what the flow of the questions is, I just want to share something that you just highlighted, which is something I would like to share, and I wrote this myself. Forget pretty, raise girls who are fierce, loyal, and honest. Forget beautiful, raise girls who are smart, strong, and comfortable in their own skin. Forget sweet, raise them with a sense of justice and the knowledge that they can do anything. And that was the intro. What is going to happen now is that our moderator, Dr. Denise, is going to be asking a series of questions to each of the panelists. What will happen is that she will start by asking a panelist a question, and then we would be having a discussion, and any other panelist can jump into the question. And we're going to have a very impactful session. Over to you, Dr. Denise.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Soyam. I'm really excited about this conversation because I know we are going to have some very stimulating conversation that's going to challenge one another and force us to grow and really, hopefully, help some folks who are out in our audience who are receiving this information. And so, first question is going to go to our guest, Mary May. So our first question is, what are the main barriers that women often face when aspiring to leadership positions?
So I would say it's 3 words: belief, trust, and the work. And the delivery of what that looks like is very different based on the woman's experience before they identify and understand that they are a natural leader. Their assignment to doing the leadership role that they have has been something that's poured into them from the very, very beginning. But they have to believe what they know is real. They have to trust that they are capable and more than capable, despite what the world tells them based on other variables that may be influencing their decision, and be willing to roll up the sleeve and understand that their destination is not determined by anyone outside of themselves. It's an inside job, and everybody experiences how it is that they step into their authority and their greatness. And when they build that trust, they have to understand also that no one knows what you know until you make the yes commitment of doing the work. And if you are a secret and hidden, you only help others who are around you in a holding pattern that they're unable to be that gift that you have that you're keeping a secret to yourself. So it's like being able to peel back those layers so that you can unpack what's on the inside of you and not allowing somebody else to tell you your destination, but to live your authentic truth.
Wow. I love that.
Mhm.
Or Dr. Justina, would you like to contribute to that response?
Sure. I think it's Dr. Justina, do you want to go? Or
Yes,
okay.
I I can't remember what the question was.
I'll repeat it. No worries. I'll repeat it. What are the main barriers that women often face when aspiring to leadership positions?
Okay, from my research and from what I know, most of the time it's what we call limiting beliefs, and also, of course, traditional and traditions and cultures that have kind of placed limiting beliefs on women, and where you think that, like Mary said, women sometimes believe that they can't do this even if they know that they have the capability within them. So they just have to overcome that idea of limiting beliefs in order to come into themselves. Women need to have this kind of unshakable self-belief in order to break out and break down those barriers that have held women back for centuries. And in order for women to actually come into themselves and be able to be the effective leaders that they are, because in each one of us, in fact, women have all the natural and the natural wisdom actually, and the requisite leadership traits that make women effective leaders. In fact, far more effective leaders than men can be.
Thank you for
And just
that.
to add to
Laura.
that, women do multitasking. Yes, I was just going to say, just to add to that, women are very capable of multitasking. They're very resilient as well. And I think when you have a lot of knockbacks, and you face gender bias in work environments as well as stereotyping, it does actually have an effect on you emotionally and mentally as well. And you do question your capabilities and whether you can actually do this role effectively and efficiently as well. I'd like to share an example with my peers. When I went for a promotion in my previous company, I had all the experience, I had ticked all the boxes, but when it came to the interview, somebody who just joined a couple of years ago was selected for a director role. My age was an issue, my experience was an issue, although I was quite capable at carrying out that role. And within 6 months of the person taking on this role, she went on maternity leave and I was asked to fill her position. So if 6 months before I wasn't able to, but 6 months after, because she went on maternity leave, I was. So those kind of knockbacks really makes you question the whole like process, recruitment process, and your capabilities. It does affect your personality as well.
Yeah. Well, powerful. When I reflect back on my journey to leadership, I have been in a woman-driven field. So I'm in the field of education and behavioral health, right? And here in America, those are typically very women-driven. So access to leadership roles in those areas aren't scarce. However, pay equity is a huge issue. Like really trying to just to Dr. Justina's point, your point, Arv, and Mary's point about like you have a level of self-confidence, you have the skill set. They know you're capable because you've been able to multitask, right? You're running families and households and spouses or partners, and you're engaged in the workforce, right? But they want those skills, but they don't often want to pay you adequately for those skills. And that's a barrier that I've seen in both behavioral health and in the field of education here in America. So any team members want to contribute to that question, Dr. Soyam or Dr. Sonia?
I'll jump in. So my background is I've worked with a Fortune 500 company for 46 years up until the time that I retired back in early 2022. And some of the things that I found in dealing with that is, and it gets back to exactly what I've said. It's like in the end, you end up getting the job, but you have to fight your way through, all the things that they throw up against you. So for instance, you may go into work one day and you've dealt with all these different personalities. You've dealt with all this stuff from leadership, and you may just happen to show an emotional reaction, and they're going to hold that against you because they're going to say, well, she can't handle stress. She can't handle this. She can't handle that. But not understanding, it could have been things that went on at home before you got to work. And on top of that, you have all these different issues. It doesn't take away from your skill set. They look for, it may be, oh, I don't like the way she wears her hair, or I don't like the way he wears his hair, or I don't like the way they dress. They throw all these barriers up that you have to overcome as a female. And so one of the things that I found best and how to work best with them, where I worked, is that, I immediately, after I went through everything that I had gone through, to me, it didn't make sense to have the young lady coming behind me go through the same things. So it was always, I would pull her aside into the conference room and I explained to her why I'm saying what I'm saying. Please do not take it the wrong way. But if I can help you overcome what I've already gone through and put you on the right path, that would put you far more ahead. So I agree with all of you ladies. I mean, it's like we're all on the same page here. So I like that. But one thing, and I'm going to have Denise go back to it because we didn't get you or allow you the opportunity to talk about the importance of women in leadership. I opened it up. Soyam read her poem, and then we went right to the questions. So Denise, if you want to allow them a few minutes to just contribute to that.
Well, thank you. I am so interested and engaged around like hearing from the expertise and experiences from this panel that, I am okay with us progressing. Okay. I think we can agree that to Dr. Justina's point that there needs to be representation, not just access 1, 2, 3 women in a boardroom. That is not sufficient. That is not sufficient, right? We want equal representation because we're not monolithic. I can assure you that the 6 women who are on this panel from different parts of the globe, even when we're in the same continent, we have very different experiences, even in the same country. And so it's not enough to have 1 or 2 or 3 of us represented on a leadership team or in a boardroom. When we say gender equality, we don't mean that you hired a woman, right? That you hired 2 or 3 women exist on a team where there are 20 people, and so you're 17 men and 3. That's not enough. It's not enough. And so to that end, if you guys are comfortable with me moving to the second question, I like to do that because this second question I'm really personally interested in. I've been in a lot of transition roles in my 27-year career. And I believe the second question really speaks to some gaps that I've seen and experienced personally during my workforce journey. And so the second question is going to go to R. And then the rest of you feel free to jump in after she responds. So the question is, what role does mentorship and sponsorship play in advancing women into leadership positions?
I'd like to start off with my belief, and it can be a very long discussion, but I believe that leaders are not born, leaders are made. And it's very important that mentorship and sponsorship, they play a very crucial role in advancing women into their leadership positions. Every single time you get a new position, there's always something that you learn from it. And it's very important to reflect on what have been your learnings and where your flaws lie that you need to develop. Obviously, there are leadership courses that you can take, but to be a great leader, you need to also be a great listener, because that plays a crucial role in how you're going to mold your team in the near future. Um, People look up to you, you look up to people as well. And this is where mentorship also plays a huge role. If you aspire to be like somebody, you have a role model in mind. It could be a famous person, it could be somebody very close within the company that you look up to, admire. It could be somebody within your network. You can always reach out to them and ask them for their help and assistance in helping you develop some of the skill set that you admire in them. Also, you need to have a very clear roadmap in terms of where your skill sets lie, where your development areas are. For example, with leadership, I feel that communication and negotiation is very, very important skills to master. And they don't come naturally. It's something that we work on all the time. All the time, we're evolving as women, we're learning new things. Even leaders who are in CEO positions, managing director positions, or even presidents, vice presidents, and so on. Everyone is learning every single day. Nobody's perfect. We're always evolving into our, skill set and bettering ourselves every time. So that's my thoughts in terms of having mentorship and sponsorship, finding those opportunities. And one quote that I remember my previous manager always used to say to me, she always used to say to me, dress for the job that you want, not for the one that you have. So that's always stuck in my mind. Yeah.
Great advice. I love it. Dr. Justina, in your experience, what role did mentorship or sponsorship play? And like, where do you think it fits?
You're on mute.
I'm sorry about that. Thank you very much, Avi, for your brilliant response and contributions to this. I believe mentorship and sponsorship is very important. In fact, that's what my foundation is based on. My foundation was founded to offer leadership training, including mentorship and coaching for young women and girls to get into leadership positions, for us to to help achieve, like I said, what the United Nations is aspiring for, a 50-50 planet. So without training and mentorship and coaching, it will be very difficult to just kind of throw these young women and girls into the deep end without holding their hand and showing them how this is done. So it's always very important. And also, in a
Where are
way,
you?
mentoring and coaching young people and also sponsoring them, then you give them that confidence that they know, one, that somebody does believe in them if they can take the time to be with them. And two, you give them the confidence and belief that what they are doing is right because they've got somebody who's done it, who's been there, who's who is showing them the way. And also in mentoring and coaching, you also expose those young people, young women and girls, of course, to all the global power networks of women who they perhaps could be their role models that they admire and can look up to. And also sometimes you actually bring them into the same settings like what we do with our conferences from the 20th to the 22nd of October. We are holding what is called a World Summit on Women and Girls, and this is to commemorate the United Nations International Day of the Girl. And this is an intergenerational dialogue with world leaders. So this is where we bring powerful women world leaders and of course with their male allies to meet together with young people from as young as 9 or 11 years old to interact so that the older people can say what they have seen of the world, what the obstacles are, and what needs to be polished up. And the young people can also explain what their aspirations are for the future, how they want to get there. And of course, most importantly, young people can articulate for themselves the future they want, the kind of world that they want. And it's up to us who've been there, done that, who know what the pitfalls are, to first of all warn them of those pitfalls, help them how to get over them. And that's why it is important to mentor, coach, and sponsor those young upcoming female leaders.
Well, thank you for that, Dr. Justina. I like how you approach it from informal mentorship and formalized mentorship and early access. Like the earlier you get, you're able to engage with young people, the better. So thank you so much for highlighting that. So Mary, I know you come at this mentorship and sponsorship two ways, two populations, both young people and with adults, like helping them make that connection and helping them see themselves in leadership. And so what have you seen? What have you noticed?
So for me, that's the core of everything that I do is understanding what it is, how a person sees themselves, but then also what is the gap between what it is that they need to sustain once they have obtained the leadership opportunity. So in the over 2 decades of me working with individuals, what I see is that, yes, they could have gone to whatever organization locally is pouring into them to kind of model them and put them into the position, but then they get into the position and they end up having roadblocks or barriers that they were not prepared for. And where I have been able to mend that and help them understand that is to understand the dialogue that most people often don't take a look at. And that is that the fact that we experience a variety of situations between the ages of 6 and 12 that kind of shape and form who we are, where we will stand, and how we will accept criticism, feedback, authority, our gifts, and understanding that our talents are needed on the other side. But until we have that great interrogation between how we have experienced the adults in our lives as allowing us to have a voice, how they have allowed us to have pay equity when we have chores, that the male children don't get paid more than the female children, that if we've experienced some kind of sexual objectivity, that we don't water down the strength of what we bring to the table because of the misunderstanding or the conversations that people don't talk about that distract us from that mentorship, then you need somebody who's going to have that real talk, that grit, and that authority to be like, okay, where else has this been a violation for you in your life, so that you can erase, interrogate, and step into your space that you're assigned to be in, but not ignoring what has happened to you or what you have experienced, because as long as you ignore that, you will continue to have barriers, you will continue to feel as though you're invisible, and the promotion is not going to be granted to you. And if the promotion is not granted, you're going to personalize that and say, it's me, I'm not worthy, I'm incapable, I'm unable, when it's not really 100% you, it's what you have been poured into that you're not dealing with. So that 6 to 12-year-old version and where it may have been contaminated, we may need to talk about that, even if you're 35, even if you're 45, even if you're in a more seasoned situation. So it's like we can begin to understand the themes and patterns that have blocked you from being coachable. because you have to ask yourself, are you truly coachable? Are you open to someone giving you that real talk, that pulling back, snatching off the wig, snatching off whatever it is that they need to snatch so that you can be in your natural self and understand that, one, it's okay. And two, understand that there's gifts in every experience, good, bad, or indifferent.
Dr. Denise, may I add something
Sure.
to what both my peers have alluded to? You can look at mentorship and sponsorship in two different ways. You can have a positive experience where somebody doesn't actually feel threatened by your capabilities and you overtaking them, and therefore will open up opportunities and doors for you. Sometimes people say you need to be in a position for a certain time, to be performing it before you actually are put into that position, right? You should be performing that job beforehand. But there are some women who feel that they don't want to mentor you. They don't want to, even play as a sponsor because they feel threatened that you're going to overtake them. And therefore, there's this element of competition that comes in. So something that we have to bear in mind as we're progressing into our leadership roles, choosing the right mentors and sponsors is very, very crucial. Is very, very important. In my experience and examples I can share, some of the women that I've worked with, as they went on to their CEO positions, their personalities completely changed. If they went into a higher position, they knew their personality changed. Where you would be going out for lunch with them and having a candid conversation, that opportunity no longer existed. Even to get access to them, to talk to you, return your phone calls was an issue. So just kind of bear that in mind, that sometimes the people that you are working with that exceed you and you celebrate their successes and their achievements, they may not necessarily feel the same way about you.
Wow. That's powerful. So I have another thought about that, right? Like when I reflect on my own journey, I'm often regretful about missed opportunities around mentorship. Like what level of responsibility do we have as individuals to identify a valuable mentor, right? Like a person who is aspirational or a person that you see value in, right? Who you believe can help guide you, right? So most of my career path, right? Most of my trajectory was about me making informed decisions, but all by myself. So they can't be like fully informed, right? Because there isn't a person there who is helping guide me and say, hey, listen, there's a pitfall right there. Hey, listen, this is how you need to engage when you talk to the CFO. Hey, listen, this is how you need to engage with this person who used to be a colleague, who now has a leadership role. And these conversations that you used to have, these lunches that you used to have will likely no longer exist. Here's how you gauge that situation. What level of responsibility do we have to ourselves in the identification of mentorship and in engaging in informal mentorships?
Integrity. We have to function from integrity out of everything that we do, and really having that honest personal inventory about how it is that we want to stand in that mentorship, sponsorship role, because it's unapologetic. You don't have to ask for permission, except for, in certain circumstances and talking about certain things, but you don't need to ask for permission to give that person the strategies. There should be no threat. It should be collaboration versus competition, because where you are in that position now, not allowing yourself to reach back or to share something side by side to support the next individual could be blocking your own opportunity for a promotion that you have no idea is right there at the door. And so this person has probably been put in your space such that you can position them, you can give them the strategy, you can give them the skill set that they can utilize, that's going to help free you up as the leader in the current chapter to be ready for your next chapter, as well as them being. It's nobody left behind. It's collaboration over competition.
Thank you. Dr. Sonia, Dr. Sonia, any thoughts here?
I want to go back to the mentorship and touch on that for a bit, because it gets back to exactly what the ladies were saying when we talk about, new people coming in, or you're having to work with someone outside of your narrative per se, and you're afraid that, well, if I share with them what I know, if I try to bring them along, it's going to jeopardize me, it's going to make me look bad, it's going to make me look like I don't know anything. But, to me, it's time out for all that, because I look at it from a different perspective. I look at it as, like I said, I retired last year. And as I was going through things in my life while I was there as a leader, you have people that work for you, but you can't be in all places at one time. So you need to train and mentor and sponsor people that are coming up behind you, under you, or whatever. So when you're unable to make that meeting, or you're unable to do whatever it is that you need to do, you feel comfortable in sending that person in that room for you. And my thing is, and it was just so funny to me, because people used to come back and say, there was one particular lady, and they would always joke and say, she dressed like you and she sounds just like you. When you guys wear red, that means don't speak to them today, because they in their power moment. And it was like these different colors, and I never thought about it like that. But again, it's how you train and mentor and coach people along the way. And so pretty much my whole team was that way. It's like, okay, this is what we do. This is how we do it. And, we can't lean on just one person. We have to lean on each other. And in order for us to make it, we have to support each other and guide each other. So I look at it from that standpoint, and then if one person looks good, the whole team looks good. It's not like, oh, she's a leader over there, but that team she has is something else. So my thing in life is, if I coach and I sponsor and I bring the people along with me, we're going to all make it. One person, if one person fail, we're going to all fail. If one person make it, we all going to make it, and we're going to all look good doing it. So I always believe in, and I'm going to use the term underdog, as they call it. And I always believe you need to help the underdog. You bring the underdog along with you, and I'm telling you, the latitudes or the altitudes that you reach by doing that are so much greater.
Yeah, I just want to add in very briefly that all the panelists have said, given some amazing feedback. But now, having to share a little bit of my experience and the 2 cents that I have noticed that is working is that Mary May did speak about how important it is from an adolescent's life. And here, working in Africa, we see this all the time when we go to work with the young women out there. I think the first thing is that when we go and work with the young girls out there in the young ages, they also need hope, and they also need some inspiration from people like us. And when they see us, it's when we give them hope to become women leaders. They have poverty and so many other issues that they can just lose all their hope and get the easy way out of life, but then they don't end up growing. So the first step for me is, when you talk about mentorship, first they see you, they get inspired by you, then they reach out to you, you give them hope, and you give them mentorship, and you give them sponsorship without judgment. Now, I feel that judgment is a big part in a woman's growth process. I feel that every time you're growing in your career, you're always fearful of what others think about you, be it your peers, be it your friends, be it your family, because you can be succeeding or you can be going through struggles, and we just have a fear of judgment all the time. Dr. Denise shared that, she made a lot of decisions by herself, but you're always double thinking that, am I doing the right thing? Am I not doing the right thing? And your fear of judgment from everything else. And guess what? We are very emotional as women. And we also have like our own egos and personalities that we don't know how to handle as much. And this plays a big part of our life. And what happens in that context is that sometimes, even when a male comes to us and tries to mentor us and coach us in a good will, we're so subjective sometimes to dismiss them, and not have them because we want to make it on our own and prove our point. So sometimes even our ego, whether we like it or not, plays a part because we want to succeed, but we don't want always the right mentorship from even the different gender. So I believe that we also face a lot of struggles with judgment, jealousy, ego, but we also need to be that inspiration and voice to those younger than us and those that we need to teach and train and those that we need to lead in order to break this barrier and to make it a normal conversation for us to also accept that we do have so many of the similar traits that we need to overcome, and we need to start from down bottom in order to be able to succeed in mentorship and sponsorship, because at the end of the day, I mean, our purpose is here as CGC talking to make a world a better place for the people in our audience and everyone listening to us. So that's just my 2 cents I wanted to share on this point.
Thank you. You highlighted some really good points. Like, in contrary to what was a previous said around like this idea of like not being fully prepared, or at least feeling self-conscious about your abilities. I feel like the reverse, or not the reverse, but the extreme of that is the when you're a woman in leadership, is this propensity to say yes to everything, right? Like to go in and to always ensure that you are dotting every I and crossing every T. And I think you're right. Like when you have a circle of women, mentorship, a sponsorship, you have an opportunity to have a sounding board, a thought partner, and someone who can help you have perspective and strategy. Like this idea of being both receiving mentorship and providing mentorship to your staff or to the other women who are in your organization as well. But those are some very significant and powerful gems you guys just shared. So thank you so much for that. Oh, so our next question feeds like right into this concept around levels of insecurity and ill preparedness, and like not having a circle of folks who can be thought partners. So this question is going to go to Dr. Justina. How can women overcome imposter syndrome and self-doubt when pursuing leadership roles?
Thank you. Am I on? Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. I think this goes back to imposter syndrome sometimes can be fed because of the limiting beliefs that women that have been placed on women, like I said before, through traditional and cultural occurrences, where women think that they are only good for this and they cannot do other things. So what we need is to re-educate, to unlearn those traditional cultures that have placed these limiting beliefs into us, to unlearn them and relearn and recapture our capability to know that we are capable of doing these things. As we've been talking about quotations, I have a brilliant quote here from Kavita Ramadas, which says, "We need women who are so strong they can be gentle, so educated they can be humble, so fierce they can be compassionate, so passionate they can be rational, and so disciplined that they can be free." So if we believe in ourselves, we can be all of these things that Kavita talks about. But on the one side, I think in a way, imposter syndrome is good because then it makes you realize that there's always room for improvement. Because sometimes I have seen some people who are so overconfident that they just go around exhibiting their lack of understanding or knowledge. It's because they are just too overconfident. For the imposter syndrome, sometimes when you sit, because nobody knows everything in this world, so you've got to know that there are some places and some platforms on which you are not the best person that can be there, and that always gives room for improvement, and that means that you can always keep improving yourself. but also there's a way to know and to take ownership in the things that you know on those platforms, that you know, yes, this is a platform for me and I know exactly what I am talking about. So to overcome imposter syndrome, women just need to reclaim what they know. They need to have that unshakable self-belief that they can, this, it is possible for them to do that. I am a gender activist, and in my gender activism, I always used to come across this saying that young women and girls cannot aspire for leadership positions because they do not have role models to make them aspire to do that. So this led me to writing my book, The Art of Iconic Leadership: Power Secrets of Female World Leaders. And this is, for me, is a gift to the next generation woman, to make them know and understand that it is possible for them to lead as a female. So when a female is in a leadership positions, they shouldn't be consumed with the imposter syndrome. But also, of course, like in anything that we do in the world, we shouldn't be overconfident that we make mistakes right in front of everybody and thinking what everything we're doing is the right thing. And like we said before, this is where the mentorship and coaching and sponsoring comes in, is to bring us back to reality and to make us realize, of course, we are not having this imposter syndrome, but are we in the right track in what it is that we are doing? So in my book, I chronicle the leadership journeys of very powerful women that I call iconic women leaders, in how the leadership traits that they have, that which I call the powers, which led them to become the leaders that they become, and how they dealt with the power when they were in power, how they handled that power, which, of course, some of them, there's a little bit of hesitation because of the imposter syndrome. And of course, like I said, then there's room for improvement. How did they improve themselves? And what legacy did they leave there? So this is a good book for young people to read, to take away that imposter syndrome, but also to understand how sometimes this can help you improve yourself. So you just have to kind of center yourself and understand the area or sphere that you are working in, and to make sure that what it is that you are doing is right. And of course, understand your real capabilities. We have seen, for example, all of us have watched Pop Idol or America's Top Idol. You know, the way they do these competitions of singers. There are some people who perhaps live by themselves and they sing in the shower, and then they bring themselves to the whole world, and the world stand up and thinks, what the hell are you doing? Trying to show the world this. So that this is where sometimes imposter syndrome can help. But of course, confidence is a brilliant thing. Unshakable self-belief is a brilliant thing that we need to embed in our young women and girls in order for them to reach for the stars.
Additional thoughts. I'll repeat the question. What can women overcome, or how can women overcome imposter syndrome as they head to leadership roles?
So what I would contribute is that people need to realize that the imposter, like the real imposter who doesn't know anything of what you know, is out here spreading whatever they feel are their truths unapologetically as if it's real. Mm-hmm. So you getting caught in your feelings and your thoughts and being stuck with the lizard brain going back and forth for what you should do, what you shouldn't do. Realize emotions do not cash checks. I'm going to say that again. Emotions do not cash checks. So if you are driving everything without the evidence of what skill you have developed and built that muscle to know what you know and have the gifts and talents that you have, just realize that you have to go from the data and the evidence of what it is that you have secured in your experience. But if you get caught up on the they saids and the emotions that come with trying to perform for the community and for the world, you are out of integrity for the gift that you have for the entire situation. And you have to also break up with the old version of you, because again, as emotions do not cash checks. Emotions do not help you get elevated. You might need to take that moment to step aside and understand how it is that you show and stand in your authority. But you also have to realize what version of you do you need to break up with so that you can understand that you are not imposturing anybody's syndrome with the skill set that you have to break out with that. So stand in your authority, accept your assignment, and just stand in it. It's going to be uncomfortable, just as uncomfortable as it may be going to the gym to build a muscle. You are building a muscle in the authority space that is assigned to you. And in order to do that, it's going to take rolling up the sleeves, eating different, working out different, doing what you have to do to build that muscle in your leadership so that your emotions are not blocking your ability on your GPS path of leading forward.
Powerful, powerful.
I would just like to add that it's important to recognize the imposter syndrome, especially it's a common feeling in highly accomplished individuals. And we're all vulnerable. Some of us are overconfident as well, as Dr. Justina alluded to. And that is because we're constantly being judged, or we feel we're being judged in our positions. And we also need to do some self-realization and reflect back on our actions and decisions to challenge our self-doubt that we may have. And even as an individual and a woman in a leadership role, you may be quick to criticize your team, but you should also be ready to receive feedback from your peers, from your colleagues to act on it, and also be ready to validate what is the right thing that you should be doing, and not being overconfident that you have all the knowledge. You don't always have all the answers, and this is something that you need to accept. As leaders, you have to take action, push yourself, continue to build your confidence, celebrate your small achievements. Rome was not built in a day. So, it's small steps leading up to bettering yourself each time.
Thank you. You guys' remarks remind me about the connectivity to, how we started this conversation about a representation, mentorship, being able to feed into young people. So by the time they get to these leadership roles, that they are operating with a little bit more of healthy self-identity, a clear sense of their aptitudes and their valuable contributions to where they are in the workforce. It reminds me of Dr. Maya Angelou's quote. She said, each time a woman stands up for herself without knowing it, she stands up for all women, right? And I like to be known as an intelligent woman, a courageous woman, a loving woman, a woman who teaches by being. And so if you operate outside of that space of that imposter syndrome, right? What reflection you're giving off to a young person or a person who is in your on your work team that you're mentoring, right? What that looks like to them and how much strength you're feeding them when you are building that muscle around this avoidance of imposter syndrome, but also balancing, it's being arrogant and having a higher self-worth than your skill set provides. And so, great remarks. Dr. Sonia, I think I'm going to turn it over to you. Unless you guys think we can get through one more question.
Dr. Sonia, you're on mute.
Go for the additional question, because this conversation.
Awesome. Yes, thank you.
Really.
Good. Okay. Our last question. How has the perception of women in leadership roles evolved over time, and what challenges still exist today? Let's start with Dr. Justina.
Okay, like I have a slightly different view on this because, like I said already, I come from a background of very powerful, assertive women that have always defied the gender dynamics. And coming from Africa, anybody that knows the true African history will know that for thousands and thousands of years, African women have always taken up leadership roles. In fact, most women were equal or even more powerful than their men, because most communities in Africa used to be matriarchal. So this tipped at some point with colonization when they brought in the monetary system, which overtook the subsistence economic system, where the women, of course, worked hand in hand with their men, so they were equal. And in most cases, the women actually owned the land. So that tipped the scales because of colonization and moving on to the monetary system, and men having to go out to work to earn money in hand, as in coins and notes, in order to eat. And then the men became the breadwinners. Then the women had to depend on the men. So that changed it. So again, then now it is changing when we start to realize some of these things, when some of us start to understand our background and to understand where women are actually coming from, and to understand that in the initial stages of the world, women were the leaders. And remember, in spirituality, women are next to God. And that is why we say Mother Earth, Mother Nature, and Mother everything. We create the life, we bring the life, we nurture the life, we put into the children what they become. At some point, they become independent and the men go off, and because, oh, mom has done so much, I'll be the one to do this. Then the whole thing tips, and the leadership potential of women, which they exhibit in the home, is in a way somehow, for some reason, is not accepted in the public sphere. But it's the same, those traits and wisdom and abilities that the women can exhibit in bringing up a family are the ones that we need to bring up into the world. That is why we are fighting for this 50-50 planet, because you find that at every high level decision-making table, we need to have 50% female perspective and 50% male perspective. Because as it is now, mostly in most leadership positions, there a deficit of the feminine wealth, where you find that at high-level decision-making tables that drive the agenda of the world, the female perspective is missing because there are no women seated at that table. So therefore, the perspectives, the desires, the ideas, the aspirations, the experiences, the diversity of thought is missing on those tables. But now it is being recognized, starting with the United Nations in earlier years having instituted the gender quotas, for example, that in every government and also boardrooms, they should be 30% female. And but now we are fighting for the 50-50 so that we have half and half. And of course, women make up 51% of the world population. So therefore, our perspectives should be brought to the fore. So this is being recognized now. And you find that in some countries, like I said, African women used to be very powerful. For now, the country in the world that leads with the highest number of female political representation in parliament is in Rwanda, which is in Africa. And the last elections that they had, when I did my research, they had 64% representation in parliament. And of course, most African countries have already had women presidents. There's a total of about 40 women combined who have been presidents, they've been vice president, they've been prime minister, and they've been deputy prime minister. put all together in Africa already. So this is changing. This has been changing. And of course, with this idea from the United Nations of now asking for 50% women and 50% female and 50%. So that is all changing. And this is also claimed as well in the boardrooms. But even having said that, as we speak right now, with the 193 countries members of the United Nations, there's only 7% women heads of state and heads of government. And of the 500, Fortune 500 countries or FTSE 100 countries, companies, there's only 25% of those companies are led by women. So there is still a lot of work that needs to be done in order for us to achieve that 50-50 planet, of course, which we were hoping we could achieve by the year 2030 at the conclusion of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, because during the Millennium Development Goals, gender equality was put at the center, at the core of that, and even at the Sustainable Development Goals of all this, in all gender equality cuts across all the 17 goals of the Sustainable Development Goals. And until we can achieve gender equality, we will not be able to achieve any of those goals, just like we didn't achieve the Millennium Development Goals. So the strides are there, but they have very far and few in between. The pace is actually very, very slow. 2 years ago, I read a report by the World Economic Forum that they did a calculator like when will your country achieve gender equality? And of course, I am from Zambia, which is in Africa. I am also a British citizen in the United Kingdom, and I calculated for both countries. And it showed that both my countries will only achieve gender equality after another 100 years. And this also, that is what set me on my path to doing what I do, because I thought, who is setting this pace? Why should the women be waiting for another 100 years to get to where we need to do? So we need to get up ourselves as women. We need to rise. We need to rise from outrage to the courage to reclaim our positions in leadership, to reclaim our rights as the human rights, as Hillary Clinton said, women's rights are human rights. As women, we need to accelerate this ourselves. And that is why what my organization is working towards. So we can't sit there and be dictated to by people like maybe the United Nations or the World Economic Forum or this one. And of course, all of these organizations are headed by men. And for thousands of years, the world has been led on the perspectives of men. We need to bring in that feminine wealth. We need to bring in that female perspective to the leadership table and decision making.
I hear everything she said about being inclusive and diversity. We need to be at the table. Mary, anything?
It's like yes and no. So I guess I would be speaking from the perspective, although I work within other countries and understanding that they have valuable resources, some of those things don't exist here in the United States. And the fight is based off of like the colonization, and they had us in service positions. And once the role and elevation and education shifted, it also shifted the narrative of what table that we should be sitting at, what conversations we should be involved in. However, even when we are in those spaces, they still have certain limitations that they place on the woman, the gentleness, the warmth. They want them to organize the dinner or the luncheon or whatever. So it's still like trying to make them domesticated, although they're in these executive positions. And so when you think about the 2 millimeter shift that would provide the value, it's like understanding that we are humans with integrity, with the level of education and expertise, that we can have an intellectual conversation That's going to shift whatever narrative, but it's not going to come without any pain or challenges or disagreement. But that not to take that as, oh, well, because she's a woman or because he's a man, that's the reason why they think that way. It should be a shared narrative that becomes a part of the team, becomes a part of the conversations, where gender becomes, yes, it's a part of the conversation, but it's not. It's a one narrative, how we're going to deal with this problem. What's the problem that we can solve, and who can put their gifts and talents into the conversation to make it happen. It should not matter that the woman in leadership said it, or the man in leadership said it, or they agree or they disagree. What is the problem and how we're solving it? Who is the member on the team that has what it takes? What is the cabinet or individuals that they need to have around them so that they can resolve it? And when we begin to have more globally based conversations that take the gender out of it, and we're matching it to the talent and the skill that one possesses, then we can have more success in anything that we're trying to elevate and bring up to the next level. Dr. Sonia, you felt that?
I felt that. I felt that. I mean, you guys are you bringing out the fire.
We have a real talk conversation.
I'm going to kind of put a different perspective on it, and I'm going to think a little bit more globally, and I'm going to take you back in time. So if we're looking at the early 20th century, women participation in leadership positions was very, very limited. Mm-hmm. Coming into the mid 20th century, women's rights movement and feminism gained a lot of momentum and provided a few more opportunities for us as women in various fields and roles. Then in the late 20th century, we made more strides, and in politics and businesses and other sectors, breaking barriers. So up to current day, we continue to march on and progress into these top positions, although we are still a little bit underrepresented in the women leadership roles. But if you look back, we've come a long way, a very long way. And I think for that, we need to give ourselves a pat on the back. But we're still fighting with, gender equality in terms of gaps in pay. For example, women footballers, the top woman footballer is paid £60,000 a year versus a male footballer who can be earning in millions, right? So we're still facing those prejudices. And also the lack of mentorship and sponsorship is there. How many organizations actually have a mentorship program or a sponsorship program, unless you seek out for one yourself? And sometimes we do come across double standards and expectations that are laid on to us. We do face harassment and discrimination in our working environments and cultural and society differences. Here in Kenya, we have community hospitals. I've never seen a CEO as a woman. Every CEO that they've ever appointed has been a male. And yet we're quite capable of taking those positions and taking the hospital to a different level. And today, women are in politics. I really admired Benazir Bhutto, the first prime minister in Pakistan, a very reserved country, yet she broke all the barriers there, setting precedent for women in these kind of positions. I admire Mary Barra, who is the CEO of General Motors and Companies. Back in the day, historically, we would be questioning what would women know about cars, yeah? And here is a lady that is leading General Motors, and has done a degree in engineering and electronical engineering, and she's inspirational for me. So I think over time we have evolved. We've got women flying airplanes, the A380, Airbus 380. They're advancing in every field, every sector. And I think during this session today, we should celebrate ourselves, and we should celebrate the women who've gone to these heights and they've become inspirational mentors for us.
Yeah, thank you, Avi. Like I said, in the UK, it is Black History Month now, and the theme is celebrating actually, and saluting our sisters, and we celebrate all those women that you talk about. Benezia Bhutto is she was one of my role models as I was growing up, and she's actually is featured in my book. But for me, I think the journey is a little slow, and also, like I said, when I go back before colonization, African women used to be leaders. A lot of communities in Africa used to be matriarchal and not patriarchal. So the patriarchal thing was kind of imposed on us in a way, so to speak, where the men then took over. And we've had this women's suffrage movement for over 200 years. And I think that is a long time to wait. Of course, we've made the strides, but as I said, these are too far and few in between. And the road has been very slow. Like the World Economic Forum said, it will take me about 134 years for my country, either Zambia or the United Kingdom, to achieve gender equality. And I think for a gender activist like myself, that is very, very slow. And of course, that does not mean that we negate the strides that have been made so far. But what I believe is that for us women, we need to go back and reach inside ourselves, because those women who used to be leaders before, they live within ourselves, because we have all the capabilities. We have all the traits, in fact, that make women to be even better and more effective leaders than men. So how do we tilt the table? That so that we can sit as equals with those men and not have to wait for another 134 years to come.
Wow, thank you. That was a very, very powerful statement. And I don't think any one of us have patience to wait 134 years. That's why we're all here today to share and discuss this very important topic, because your voices today have created an impact to the greater world out there. Your voices today have helped us impact other women and young upcoming women out there today. Your voices have also helped men see the brighter side of women and our capabilities to make this world a better place. I would just like to wrap up by sharing some of my takeaways that we got here today. Mary said, belief, trust, the work. Inside job, build the trust, make the yes commitment. Dr. Justina, she spoke about limiting beliefs, and she repeated this 5 times: unshakable beliefs. Why should we keep limiting our beliefs? Arv. Arv said leaders are made. Dress the job you want, not that you have. Dr. Justina, some gives confidence and belief. If you take out Dr. Justina's words out of this whole context, she's given you a very powerful message: believe. Believe, believe, believe. Mary, roadblocks and barriers they are not aware of. Need someone who has a real job. And she asked you a question. She asked us the question: are you truly coachable? Think about it. Are you truly coachable? Dr. Justina, she told us to unlearn and relearn. If we believe in ourselves, women need to reclaim what they know. Once again, unshakable self belief. Emotions do not catch checks. Mary, emotions do not catch checks. Arv said, you don't always have the answers, and that's okay. Dr. Justina ended off by sharing a very powerful statement that we need to have a 50 male and 50% female perspective. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us this evening. A big thank you to our panelists, Dr. Justina Mutale from London, Arv Kelsey from Nairobi, Kenya, and Mary May from the United States of America. Today, on behalf of our gender equality team of Dr. Denise Cuff, Melissa Fraser, Dr. Sonia Robinson, we could not thank you enough for being our panelists on this very important conversation that we're having. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions for the panelists, please write it down and we will reach out to you. This conversation doesn't stop here. This is just the beginning. And as we progress in this journey under our Gender Equality CGC goal, we will be having more of these interactive sessions. On behalf of the gender equality, women in leadership is only one of our pillars. We talk a lot about gender violence, anti-bullying, and a lot more. Catch us on the 9th of December, where we will be having another wonderful session that you cannot miss on gender violence. With this, I would once again like to end by sharing a quote which is very close to my heart. And it goes, words are the seeds within every conversation, and the intent is to fertilize, by Dr. Sonia Robinson. Thank you all for joining the conversation today, and I hope it was extremely fruitful. And we look forward to seeing you all on the 9th of December. Thank you to our panelists and our team. And with that, we wish you a very impactful day full of beliefs, confidence, positive attitudes, and smiles. These women in front of us made it. You can do it too. Have a good day, have a good night, and have a lovely weekend.